Since the release of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, I've been playing the hell out of this game. It's awesome. This is my first time ever playing Oblivion, and any interest for it originally stemmed from my love of its sequel, Skyrim. Obviously, we all know how old Skyrim is. However, with how well it's performed, it still gets talked about to this day. And even before this new remastered version of Oblivion released, I'd heard a pretty common sentiment across Elder Scrolls fans. That was that Skyrim had lost a lot of what made Oblivion great. I personally had no idea if this was true, but I definitely heard it a lot, and finally, now I had the chance to see for myself if I agree. Skyrim isn't perfect, but damn is it great. So how could they make it any better? What a fool I was. I'm Adam, and today I'm going to discuss whether I think Oblivion is really better than Skyrim. This opinion of Oblivion being Alright, pause. You might think I've been fooled, but I know why everyone's here to watch this video. I should really save this part till the end, but I'm going to be generous today. Official lockpicking minigame ranking incoming. Which one is better? Surprise! They both actually suck after doing them 1 million times. In reality though, I probably prefer Skyrim's. Oblivion's is insanely easy to exploit once you figure out the timing, to the point that even the hardest locks aren't challenging, but just a minor time-consuming nuisance. Skyrim's is also that. But I do enjoy the random, yet refined simplicity of it, if you could say that, compared to something you can just always perfect once you figure out how to do it once. Just my opinion, guys. Anyways, this opinion of Oblivion being deeper than Skyrim I've seen thrown around a lot, now more than ever with the remaster version just releasing, which huge win on Bethesda's part, releasing a stunning remaster for like $60. I'm Canadian. That also includes the DLC. Man, if only every company did this. Anyways, before I start comparing, I do want to preface that I'm a big fan of both games. So no matter the outcome, in the end, I still like both a lot. To start off, I think the largest controversy easily comes with the RPG systems. If there's one part in this video where I think I can be pretty objective about which one is better, it's this. Oblivion is undoubtedly the better RPG. Your ability as the player to actually role-play in this role-playing game is so much greater than Skyrim. Beginning with one of the first parts of the game, the character creator. Both games offer a selection of race, each with a unique appearance and bonuses, but that's where Skyrim ends. Of course, you can choose gender and how you look, but that doesn't really have to do with how the game functions, and even the race bonuses are generally only helpful early game. Now, booting up Oblivion, I was blown away by how many more options were given to you. Birth signs add more unique bonuses on top of the ones you get from your race, but selecting a class is really where Oblivion shines. Within each class, you can choose favored attributes and allocate points where you'd like them, and also major skills, which allows those skills selected to level up insanely fast than all the others, among some other bonuses. You can select a pre-made class or opt to go completely original and make a custom class. A great addition, and that's what I ended up doing. And these are super important decisions that will affect your character throughout the entire playthrough. You definitely could argue that this isn't a good thing, and I think that's what Bethesda's outlook on it was. Like, it is possible to mess up your character and then be screwed for the rest of the game. But I do feel like that's pretty unlikely given that there are the pre-made classes in case you don't know what you're doing at all. I don't believe Skyrim's character creation is streamlined. I think it's just downgraded to try and appeal to a larger audience. But in doing this, it removes so much of the creativity and freedom that Oblivion gave you to make a character your own. And this extends farther than just the initial character creator. Even the leveling up is changed extensively. Now, I have heard that Oblivion Remastered's leveling up was changed to be more like Skyrim's, in the way that you gain overall level experience by leveling up individual skills. but if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments please. This system I do actually kind of like. It encourages experimentation with all the different skills, especially late game, and rewards you for playing how you enjoy. When you do gain a level, Skyrim gives you the option to increase only 3 stats: Magicka, Stamina, and Health. Obviously, important stats, but Oblivion offers you about triple the selection, with some interesting choices too, like personality and speed. Now, to Skyrim's credit, they do have a large skill tree that you gain points for when leveling up. And I am a pretty big fan of this. I think that in combination with more attributes, it could be a super fun time. But by itself, I probably enjoy Oblivion's leveling more. The skill tree in Skyrim is neat at times, but I admit a lot of the perks can feel pretty boring, like just extra damage instead of unique skills. The tree can even feel inaccessible for how high of a level in that skill you need to be, and therefore how late game you need to be to get some of them. Overall, I think this one is more split than the character creator. It could definitely be more of a personal preference either way. However, one feature Oblivion honestly surprised me with was the ability to create your own spells. This was a super fun feature. Genuinely no idea why they decided to remove this from Skyrim. I suppose it's a tad exploitable, but honestly, that's part of the fun. The ability to chain different magic effects together and adjust all the minor details like range or damage, plus just the fun of experimenting and naming your own stuff. This was genuinely one of my favorite features of Oblivion, and I wasn't even playing as a mage. Let's move on from the mechanics of how these games work and more into the actual content within the game. Starting with quests. In terms of the main quests, I do think both games are pretty good. Dragons in Skyrim suck to fight, but just the spectacle of them being there is pretty cool. I've really liked interacting with them. Alduin is a super cool villain with a crazy good design and potentially like the best dragon name in fiction. While Skyrim definitely has the upper hand with him, I think the Oblivion crisis itself is more present and a more threatening danger than the dragons returning. This is helped due to how many NPCs will talk about it, or even just exploring and running into all these menacing Oblivion gates. I know lots of fans are not super keen on completing Oblivion gates, and I agree that they do get tedious eventually, but at the beginning, I had a super great time with them. Honestly, yeah, as I said before, both games have really strong main quest lines and climaxes at the end. I was not expecting such a grand finish to Oblivion, or to travel to Sovngarde to fight Alduin. Side quests, I think, are where things start to shift around a little bit more. Both games have their strong moments, but I do believe Oblivion has more, especially with the guild questlines. Both games have a similar amount of main guilds, however I do like Oblivion's arena a lot. It was the first questline I did, and well, it was purely combat. I kinda liked that. It was unique and really fun how unfair it would seem at some points, just for you to lock in and destroy a 3-on-1 with a tiny amount of health left. The real highlight of Oblivion is 100% the Dark Brotherhood questline, which just has numerous unique and creative quests, plus tons of twists and turns in the actual Brotherhood itself. I don't want to spoil it, but genuinely one of the best questlines in a big RPG like this ever. And this is a common theme in all of the questlines: betrayals, sacrifices, unexpected twists. They were just so much more engaging than Skyrim's in my opinion. For the most part, I was really excited to see what the next missions had in store for me, whereas Skyrim's were oftentimes just combat or fetch quests. Like honestly, I don't know what to say about Skyrim's. Of course there's a few diamonds in the rough, but the overall quality once again just feels downgraded when compared to Oblivion. And before I forget, the DLC in both games is very strong, actually. I love the Dawnwalker stuff. It definitely shows how the companions in Skyrim are a lot stronger, and the Shivering Isles is just really creative and unlike anything else in either of these games. Now, I feel like I've been slamming Skyrim into the ground, so let's talk about somewhere where Skyrim really shines: the actual world. As was very present in the marketing, I think a lot of the downgrades to Skyrim came because a lot more focus was put into making its world a lot stronger. I was surprised to see that the world of both games is actually like a very similar size. Skyrim is even a tad smaller, I think, but the handcrafted feel of Skyrim makes it a lot more fun to explore. Genuinely, what got me into this game was just the fun of running around Tamriel, finding a neat point of interest, clearing it out, discovering all the new enemies and traps and interesting loot, and that still might be my favorite thing to do in Skyrim. Playing Oblivion, I was kinda disappointed by how relatively empty the world felt. Even when you found a point of interest, it wasn't really unique. There wasn't a way to clear locations. Plus the looting is odd in Oblivion. I think chests just scale with you, so at the beginning there was almost no loot worth getting anywhere, and because of that I had no intention of exploring when I wasn't going to find anything interesting or useful. Then in the late game, collecting armor and weapons off of enemies and selling those was easily the best way to make infinite amounts of money. So again, not much need to explore for loot. Definitely a win for Skyrim with the design of its world. Another category I think Skyrim wins in would be combat, although both of these games are pretty close in this one too. I'll be straight up, if there's one part of these games I'm not a huge fan of, it's probably going to be the combat. I have my fun with it, that's for sure, but it does tend to feel a little shallow most of the time. I usually opt for a swordsman, and all that comes down to most of the time is a statistical battle. I need more health and stamina than the enemy to win. It makes it sound a lot less fun than it is, because it is sometimes, don't get me wrong. Anyways, Skyrim has some neat combat features. Dual wielding is pretty fun, and I've always been a fan of shouts. I found each of them pretty unique, and it was fun to upgrade them through exploring. Really the only thing Oblivion has in Skyrim is spell making in combat, but I already went into that. I guess there's a dodge too, but that always seemed kinda impractical to use most of the time. I've heard lots of people say Oblivion just feels more charming and creative than Skyrim, and I do feel like any opinion on this matter is highly affected by nostalgia, but I think both games have lots of silly little charms to them. The dialogue in both games is just really funny at times. Maybe Oblivion has more, like I like the stupid NPC conversations with each other.
It seems Somerset Isle has become a much more dangerous place.
Take care.
But Skyrim's definitely got plenty of charm to it. Charm and atmosphere go pretty hand in hand, and I have the same conclusion about that too. Both games have wonderful soundtracks and moods. I like both, but I do think they're pretty different. Skyrim always felt a little lonelier, the world a little colder and more brutal, but there's still an epic adventure to be had. Oblivion, while feeling more dire at times, had a much brighter and grand fantasy feel to it, I think. I love both, and they each scratch a different itch, and I don't think I could pick a favorite in this category. Seriously though, props to Jeremy, Elder Scrolls soundtracks are straight fire. I suppose I should talk about the looks of these games, but this one is pretty unfair. Oblivion Remastered came out this year, and this game looks stunning. I don't know how they did it, but it might be the best looking game on my PS5. Definitely of this scale. All the lighting, and interiors especially, are incredible. I have so many great screenshots from the game. Skyrim also looks pretty great, but it is obviously dealt the losing hand releasing so much earlier. However, this does lead well into my next point. If only there was a way to make Skyrim look better. Oh wait, modding. Skyrim is what I and many others would consider the most extensively modded game of all time. Genuinely hundreds of thousands of mods for this game. And when I got a PC a couple of years ago, I was finally able to fully dive into them. Well, I don't know if this should be counted as part of Skyrim's pros. I'm going to, because I think it's a large part of Skyrim as a game. And the mods just add so much possibility and freedom. There's the graphic improvements, which are wonderful, although my PC isn't good enough to get Skyrim looking even close to the Oblivion remaster. I know many people can though. Then there's gameplay changes. I love all the new combat improvement mods, but beyond that, there's entire new characters, quests, entire areas. There is what feels like infinite possibilities. I didn't realize how much fun I'd have with mods, but genuinely not sure if I'd ever want to go back to normal Skyrim now. In this one, Oblivion Remastered is also dealt the losing hand, as it just released, so obviously the modding scene is not going to be as huge as Skyrim's, but I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually reaches that level. In conclusion, while Skyrim definitely has its positives and has for sure had a bigger impact on gaming as a whole, I do believe Oblivion is the better game, just because there's more game to it. I think it's a pretty subjective topic. Those looking for a neat open world to explore will enjoy Skyrim more. Those looking for a deep role-playing game to create a character who's completely your own will enjoy Oblivion. Whichever one you personally prefer, I think we can all agree that The Elder Scrolls 6, if it ever releases in our lifetime, could combine the best features of both to create one of the greatest open world RPGs of all time. Because of how often I've heard people talk about this and the grand success of the Oblivion remaster, I hope Bethesda actually does this, because I could definitely see it happening. Before I end it, I want to try and answer a question some of you might have. Why did Bethesda downgrade in the first place? I've talked about it briefly, but I believe to try and streamline the experience and make it more accessible to a wider audience. While I wasn't there to see it firsthand, I could imagine Oblivion being a little bit intimidating from the outside, especially to those who had never dabbled in RPGs before. Skyrim is a lot easier to get right into, which I did experience firsthand. It's one of the first RPGs I played, the gateway to games like The Witcher 3, peak. There was of course some development limitations, and in trying to improve combat and the world, I'm sure some features they probably wanted to have had to be cut due to deadlines and just manpower, although it's impossible to say for certain. Lastly, and probably most importantly, they wanted money. Many of the big popular RPGs of the time were a lot similar to Skyrim, and it makes sense if they are appealing to a wider audience. Regardless of why it happened, it did. And I hope you enjoyed watching me dive into this topic. Hopefully my conclusion made sense, but if it didn't, feel free to leave some comments down below. I am really interested to see what other people think about this. But all of you, thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.